Lena stood in the bank lobby, her jaw swollen and throbbing, watching the manager print out 4 years of transaction records. 75%. That's how much of her life her mother had stolen, one direct deposit at a time. $2,400 every month for 48 months. The math was simple. $115,200. While she'd been eating ramen and riding the bus with a dental infection, her brother had been driving a luxury car paid for with her blood money. But her mother had made one critical mistake. She'd taught Lena to be detail-oriented, meticulous, prepared. Those same skills were about to dismantle everything her mother had built on lies. My name is Lena Park, and for 4 years, I paid a tax that nobody talks about. Not income tax, not sales tax, the family tax, the price you pay for being responsible, for being the one who went to college, for being the child your parents decided would carry everyone else. I was 26 years old, working 60-hour weeks as a software developer, making $3,200 a month after taxes, and living like I made minimum wage. Because I didn't actually make $3,200 a month, I made $800. The rest went home. Every single month, and when I finally asked to keep an extra $300 to get an infected tooth pulled, my mother said no. That was the moment I realized I wasn't supporting my family. I was funding my own exploitation. This is the story of how I got my money back. And so much more. It started the day I got my first real job after college. I'd graduated with a computer science degree, no debt thanks to scholarships and brutal work-study hours, and a job offer from a mid-sized tech company in Denver. Starting salary, $52,000 a year. To me, at 22, it felt like winning the lottery. My mother cried when I told her. Happy tears, I thought. Pride. But the next sentence clarified everything. This is such a blessing for our family. Our family, not me. Us. My mother, Patricia, had been a paralegal before my father left when I was 14. She'd worked part-time after that, always complaining about her knees, her back, her stress. By the time I graduated college, she'd stopped working entirely. Early retirement, she called it. My brother, Marcus, was 3 years younger than me. Where I'd been the studious, anxious overachiever, Marcus had been the charismatic one. The one with big dreams and no follow-through. He'd dropped out of community college after 1 semester to pursue opportunities. Those opportunities never materialized into income, but they always required funding. The conversation happened during my first week of work. Mom sat me down at the kitchen table, a spreadsheet already prepared. She'd calculated the household expenses, mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, property taxes, her portion, Marcus's portion, my portion, now that I was employed. It comes to $2,400 a month, she said, sliding the paper across to me. Your share of keeping this family afloat. I was young, naive, grateful to have had a roof over my head through college. I said yes. For the first year, I told myself it was temporary. Marcus would get a job. Mom would go back to work. I'd help them get stable. Then I'd move out, start saving, build my own life. But month after month, nothing changed. Marcus had a new scheme every few months. Day trading, drop shipping, crypto investing, each one requiring startup capital that came from the family fund. Mom's knees got worse, or her back, or her migraines. There was always a reason she couldn't work. I lived in the converted attic of the house I'd grown up in. 1 room, slanted ceiling, a bathroom I shared with Marcus. I took the bus to work because I couldn't afford a car. I packed the same lunch every day, peanut butter sandwich, apple, granola bar, because I was trying to save the $800 I had left each month. But there were always additional expenses. Mom's medication, Marcus's car insurance, a leaky pipe, a broken appliance. By the end of each month, I was lucky to have $200 in savings. I told myself I was being a good daughter, a good sister. Family takes care of family. But I started noticing things. Small things that didn't add up. Mom's new purses. The designer kind she'd never been able to afford before. Marcus's wardrobe, suddenly full of expensive streetwear. The house suddenly had a landscaping service when I'd been mowing the lawn myself for years. When I asked about it, Mom got defensive. I'm allowed to have nice things, Lena. I raised 2 children alone. Don't I deserve a little comfort? I felt guilty for asking. I stopped noticing, or I tried to. Then came the wisdom tooth, lower right molar, impacted, infected. The pain started on a Tuesday, and by Friday, I couldn't eat solid food. My dentist took one look and said, "This needs to come out, soon. It's infected, and it's going to get worse." The extraction would cost $800 without insurance, $450 with my bare bones plan. I had $120 in my checking account. Payday was in 3 days. I did the math. If I could keep an extra $300 from my paycheck, I could get the extraction and still contribute $200 to the household. Surely that was reasonable. Surely my mother would understand. Before my direct deposit even hit, Mom's text arrived. "Payday, sweetie. Don't forget, $2,400 for household expenses." My jaw was throbbing. I could barely think. I typed back, "Mom, my wisdom tooth's infected. Can I keep an extra $300 to get it pulled?" She called instantly. Not texted, called. "Honey, extractions are like $150. You don't need $300. "Mom, I got a quote. It's $450 with my insurance." "Then go to a dental school. They do it cheaper." I was standing in my tiny attic room, holding my swollen face, listening to my mother tell me to get bargain dental surgery so she wouldn't have to reduce her monthly allowance by $300. "I need this taken care of now, Mom. It's infected. It hurts." Her voice changed, colder. "Lena, I don't have time for this drama. The mortgage is due. Do you want us to lose the house? Transfer the $2,400 like always." She hung up. I sat on my bed, pain radiating through my skull, and something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked, like a fault line you don't notice until the earthquake hits. I transferred the money. I always did. Then I took out my phone and started looking at my bank statements. Really looking. 4 years of statements. The numbers told a story I'd been too exhausted to see. It took me 3 days to piece it together. 3 days of going through bank records, credit card statements I'd been added to as an authorized user, receipts I found around the house. 3 days of my jaw swelling and the infection spreading while I uncovered the scope of what had been done to me. I'd given my mother $115 to $200 over 4 years. That part I knew. What I didn't know was where it had gone. The mortgage was $1,400 a month. Utilities averaged $300. Groceries, even generous groceries, were maybe $600. Property taxes were $3,800 annually, roughly $320 monthly. Insurance, $200. That was $2,120 in actual household expenses. I was giving her $2,400. She told me that was my share. But I was the only one paying. Marcus contributed nothing. Mom contributed nothing. I was covering 85% of the real expenses. The other $380 was going... Where? I found out on Sunday morning. Mom and Marcus had gone to brunch, something they did every weekend at a trendy place downtown that charged $40 per person. I stayed home, jaw too swollen to eat, and did something I'd never done before. I went into my mother's room and looked through her desk. The credit card statements were in the bottom drawer. Cards in my mother's name. But the authorized user cards sent to the house had my name on them too. My credit was being used to secure her spending. $3,400 at Nordstrom over the past 2 months. $1,800 at a luxury spa. $600 monthly subscription to some investment club Marcus had joined. $15,000 paid to a dealership 3 weeks ago. $15,000. Cash purchase. I checked Instagram. Marcus had posted a photo 2 weeks ago. Him leaning against a black Audi A4. Caption: "Finally got my dream car. Hard work pays off." Hard work. His hard work. My money. The infection in my jaw felt minor compared to the poison spreading through my understanding of the last 4 years. I sat on my mother's carpet, credit card statements scattered around me, and did more math. If the actual household expenses were $2,020 and I was paying $2,400, that left $420 monthly shortfall. But there was no shortfall. Mom had savings. I'd seen the statements once when helping her file taxes. $83,000 in a savings account. Money she'd received from the divorce settlement and never touched. She didn't need my money to keep the house. She never had. She wanted my money. Wanted it to maintain the lifestyle she'd become accustomed to fund Marcus's endless schemes, to avoid having to work herself. I was not supporting my family. I was being farmed. But the betrayal went deeper. I found emails. Printed emails in a folder marked family. Messages to aunts, uncles, cousins. My mother's narrative about me. Ungrateful, selfish, always complaining about money despite living here rent-free and barely contributing. She told the extended family that I paid maybe $600 a month and resented even that. She'd positioned herself as the martyr mother dealing with her difficult, entitled daughter. The family believed her. I'd noticed the coldness at Thanksgiving, the way my aunt had made comments about my generation not understanding sacrifice. I'd thought it was general boomer sentiment. It wasn't. They thought I was the problem. The dental emergency wasn't even about $300. Mom had $83,000 in savings. She could have loaned me the money and had me pay it back over 2 months. She said no because she didn't see my pain as real. Didn't see me as real. Just as a direct deposit that came twice a month, a resource to be extracted. That's when I knew this would never stop. If I stayed, I'd be 40 years old, still handing over the majority of my paycheck, still living in an attic, still being told I was selfish for wanting basic medical care. I needed to leave. But leaving wasn't enough. They'd tell everyone I'd abandoned my poor mother and disabled brother. They'd play victims. They'd been playing victims for 4 years using my money as props. I needed receipts, documentation, proof. And I needed to disappear without warning, because the moment they knew I was leaving, they'd extract everything they could. The revenge started with a phone call. I scheduled the tooth extraction for Monday morning, paid the $450, and felt the relief of pain finally ending. Then I called a lawyer who specialized in financial abuse and family exploitation. "I need to know if I have a case," I told her, jaw still numb from anesthesia. She listened to my story, asked for documentation. I sent her everything. She called back 2 hours later. "The car purchase might be recoverable if you can prove your money funded it, and you never consented to that use. The credit card's with you as an authorized user that's damaging your credit score, and if you didn't consent to specific purchases, that's fraud." The crack inside me split open, became a chasm. I started by opening a new bank account at a different institution, one my mother had no knowledge of, no access to, no ability to monitor. I set up direct deposit to the new account, effective the next pay period. I told no one. The next step was the apartment. I'd been saving, or trying to, for 4 years. I had $2,400 total. Not enough for first month, last month, and deposit in Denver's rental market, but I'd built good credit despite my mother's attempts to damage it. I applied for an apartment across town, a studio in a decent neighborhood, $950 a month. I offered to pay 3 months up front if they'd work with my limited savings. The landlord, a woman in her 60s who reminded me of the grandmother I rarely got to see anymore, looked at my bank statements showing regular $2,400 monthly transfers. "Where's this money going?" she asked. I told her. "Not everything, but enough." She listened, expression hardening. "My daughter went through something similar," she finally said. "Her ex-husband bled her dry, claiming it was for their kids, but it was for his new girlfriend. The family court finally saw through it, but it took years." She handed me the lease. "I'll waive the extra months, just first and deposit. You get yourself out of there." I signed the lease on a Wednesday, moved in on Saturday while Mom and Marcus were at Marcus's friend's wedding, an event I'd declined to attend, citing a work deadline. I took my clothes, my laptop, my books, and a few pieces of furniture. I left the attic room empty except for the bed frame, which belonged to the house. I left no note, no explanation, no forwarding address. Then I went to work. The lawyer I'd consulted helped me file a claim in small claims court against Marcus for the car. The limit in Colorado is $7,500, so I sued for exactly that, half the car's value. Representing the portion I could prove came from specific contributions I'd made that were supposedly for household expenses, but were diverted to his purchase. I filed a fraud report with the credit bureaus regarding the authorized user accounts, documenting purchases I'd never consented to. I disputed every charge over $100 from the past year. My credit score jumped 40 points within weeks as fraudulent items were removed. But the nuclear option, the one that would truly expose what had been done, required careful planning. I needed the family to understand who the real villain was, and I needed them to hear it from someone they'd believe. I started with my aunt, my mother's younger sister Karen. We'd been close when I was younger, but she'd been cold lately, the result, I now understood, of my mother's poisonous narrative. I called her on a Monday evening. "Aunt Karen, I need to show you something. Can I come over?" She agreed, wary but curious. I brought my laptop, my bank statements, the credit card bills, the emails I'd found on Mom's desk. I brought the receipts for Marcus's car, Mom's shopping, and the luxury spa treatments. And I brought the records showing my monthly $2,400 contributions alongside the actual household expenses. I laid it out like a case file, because that's what it was, a case against my mother's character, prosecuted with evidence. Karen went pale as she read, then pale again. "4 years?" she whispered. 4 years, $115,000, and she told you I was selfish, that I barely contributed, that I complained about helping. Karen's hands were shaking. "She told me you paid maybe $600 and acted like it was a fortune. She said you were entitled, that your generation didn't understand sacrifice." She looked up at me, eyes wet. "She said Marcus was struggling to find his path, and you resented any money that went to help him." "Marcus bought a $15,000 car with my money, while I had an infected tooth I couldn't afford to treat. Mom has $83,000 in savings and told me I didn't need the $300 for the extraction." Silence. Heavy. Damning. "Where are you living now?" Karen finally asked. "I moved out. They don't know where. They think I'm still handing over $2,400 a month, so when this month's payment doesn't arrive, that's when they'll realize I'm gone." Karen stood up, started pacing. She was a high school principal, used to dealing with problems, used to finding solutions. "You need to tell the family, everyone, the whole truth. They won't believe me. They'll believe Mom. Not if I'm standing next to you. Not if I tell them I've seen the evidence." We planned it for the following Sunday. The monthly family dinner, usually held at my mother's house. This time, Karen insisted it be at her place. "Bigger space," she said. "We need more room." Every aunt, uncle, and cousin received an invitation. Karen made sure everyone came. She billed it as important family business. The family arrived. 15 people in Karen's living room. My mother came in smiling, Marcus beside her, both of them oblivious. Mom saw me and froze. "Lena, what are you doing here?" "We're having a conversation about family contributions," Karen said, voice flat. "Lena's going to explain some financial discrepancies." I watched my mother's face. I watched her calculate, adjust, and prepare her defense. She was good at this. She'd been playing victim for 4 years. She could do it again. But this time, she didn't have preparation time, and she didn't control the narrative. I started explaining. "For the past 4 years, I've been contributing $2,400 a month to household expenses. That's $115,200 total. I was told this was my share of keeping the family afloat. These are the actual household expenses: mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, property taxes, $2,120 monthly. I was paying 85% of the real expenses. My brother paid nothing, my mother paid nothing. Here's where the extra money went: designer purchases, spa treatments, Marcus's car, bought in cash for $15,000. I let that sit. I watched Marcus sink into the couch. This is Marcus's Instagram post about his dream car and how hard work pays off. This is the bank receipt showing the cash purchase 3 weeks after I made my monthly contribution. These are emails my mother sent to family members describing me as ungrateful, selfish, and barely contributing. Telling you I paid maybe $600 and resented even that. These messages are why some of you have been cold to me. Why did you believe I was the problem? I could see faces changing. Confusion becomes understanding, becoming anger. My Uncle Robert, Grandma Helen's son, stood up. "Patricia, where the hell is that money?" My mother's mouth opened, closed. She looked at Marcus, who was staring at his phone like it might save him. She looked at Karen, who stared back with an expression of absolute disgust. "You don't understand," Mom finally said. "Lena makes good money. She can afford it. I raised her. I sacrificed for her. This is just paying me back for—" "Bullshit." Karen's voice cut through the room. "She's your daughter, not your retirement plan. You have $83,000 in savings, and you told her she couldn't keep $300 for an emergency dental extraction. You made her think the family would lose the house if she didn't hand over most of her paycheck, and you spent that money on handbags. I deserve to have nice things." Mom's voice was rising, defensive. "I raised 2 children alone. Their father left me with nothing." "He left you with a settlement and child support," Robert said quietly. "I know. I helped you with the divorce paperwork. You got $75,000 and won $200 monthly until the kids were 18. You weren't destitute, Patricia. You were comfortable." Mom's face was red now. "You people don't understand what it's like. The stress, the responsibility. Lena was living in my house, in an attic room, paying $2,400 monthly, which is more than a studio apartment in most Denver neighborhoods," I said. My voice was steady, calm. I'd practiced this. "I was paying to live in my childhood bedroom while you told the family I lived there for free." My cousin Michelle, who was an accountant, raised her hand like we were in a meeting. "Can I see those statements?" I handed her the laptop. She scrolled, calculated. I looked at my mother with professional disgust. "This is financial abuse." "I already filed a small claim suit against Marcus for the car," I said. "And I reported the credit card fraud to the bureaus. My name was used to secure debt I didn't consent to for purchases I didn't make." Marcus finally spoke. "Lena, come on, we're family. You're really going to sue me?" I looked at him. My baby brother, the one I'd helped with homework, driven to parties, covered for when he missed curfew. The one who'd called me the Bank of Lena as a joke. "You bought a $15,000 car while I had an infected tooth I couldn't afford to treat. Yeah, Marcus, I'm really going to sue you." The room erupted. Questions, accusations, my mother trying to defend herself while Marcus sat in silence. Aunt Michelle was calculating exactly how much of my money had been stolen. Karen was standing with her arms crossed, letting it all unfold. I didn't need to say anything else. The evidence spoke. The family, who'd been manipulated into believing I was the selfish one, now saw the truth. I left after 20 minutes. I'd said everything I needed to say. Karen walked me to my car. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now they figure out how to pay their own bills, and I start saving for my own future. Your mother's going to have to sell the house. She can't afford it without your money. She has $83,000 in savings. She can afford a smaller place, and maybe she'll have to get a job, like most 57-year-olds do." Karen hugged me, hard. "I'm sorry. I should have questioned her story. I should have known. She's a good liar. She had practice." The small claims court hearing happened 6 weeks later. Marcus showed up with no lawyer, no defense, just a stammered explanation that family helps family, and he'd thought I was okay with the car purchase. The judge looked at the bank records, looked at Marcus, looked at me. "Did your sister consent to this purchase?" "Not explicitly, but we're family, and—" "Answer the question. Did she give explicit consent for her money to be used to buy you a vehicle?" "No." Judgment for the plaintiff, $7,500, payable immediately or through wage garnishment if the defendant is employed. Marcus didn't have $7,500. He didn't have a job. The judgment would sit there, accruing interest, a permanent mark on his credit. He'd have to sell the car to pay for it. He'd have to sell the car and still owe me money. The credit card fraud investigation took longer, but one by one, fraudulent charges were reversed. My credit score climbed. The cards were closed. My mother's spending spree was over. She tried to reach me. Dozens of texts, voicemails, emails. Each one was a masterpiece of manipulation. She was sorry. She'd made mistakes. I was breaking her heart. Family should forgive. Didn't I care about her health? The stress was killing her. I was being cruel. I was selfish. I was ungrateful. I read them all. Didn't respond to any. After 6 weeks, I blocked her number. Marcus sent one message. "I hope you're happy. Mom might lose the house." I typed back, "She has enough savings to rent an apartment and get a job. She'll be fine. You should probably do the same." Then I blocked him too. 3 months after I left, my mother sold the house. She couldn't afford the mortgage without my contributions, and the savings were dwindling fast without free money pouring in. She moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a less expensive neighborhood and got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. The irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus moved in with a friend, finally got a job in retail, and sold the Audi to make the first payment on the judgment. He still owed me $4,000. I wasn't holding my breath. I thrived. Without $2,400 leaving my account every month, I had actual disposable income for the first time in my adult life. I paid off my credit card debt, built an emergency fund, started contributing to a 401k, bought a used car, nothing fancy, just reliable transportation, so I didn't have to take the bus anymore. I got promoted at work. Turns out, when you're not exhausted and resentful and in constant pain from untreated medical issues, you perform better. My salary increased to $62,000. I moved to a 1-bedroom apartment, bought real furniture instead of thrift store cast-offs. I started therapy, spent sessions unpacking the guilt, the manipulation, the years of being told I was selfish for wanting to keep my own money. The therapist helped me see the patterns clearly. How my mother had positioned herself as the victim of my father's abandonment, then transferred that victim narrative to her relationship with me. How Marcus had been trained to see me as a resource rather than a person. How the family dynamics had been toxic long before I started working. You know what you did, right? My therapist said during one session. You broke a generational pattern. Your mother exploited you the way she'd probably been exploited. But you stopped it. You said no. That takes tremendous strength. The guilt lessened, slowly. Some days, I still wondered if I'd been too harsh. If I should have tried to help them transition, given them warning, offered a payment plan to ease them off my support. Then I'd remember the infected tooth. My mother saying no to $300 while sitting on $83,000 in savings. Marcus laughing about the Bank of Lena. The emails poisoning my reputation. The guilt would fade. The certainty would return. Aunt Karen and I became close again. She invited me to holidays, made sure I knew I was always welcome. She'd severed contact with my mother after the family meeting, unable to forgive the lies and manipulation. Other family members did the same. My mother had isolated herself by trying to isolate me. I dated, carefully. I was hyper-aware of financial dynamics now, watching for signs that someone saw me as a wallet rather than a partner. It made relationships harder, but safer. I wasn't going to be exploited again. Not by family, not by anyone. I'd been the only one who actually cared. And I'd paid for that caring with 4 years of my life and $200. But I'd gotten myself back. My freedom, my future. My sense of self-worth is not tied to how much I could give to people who only knew how to take. That was worth more than any amount of money.